I bet there are some movies you love so much that you've watched them over and over again.
What's that?
Hey!
But did you ever notice that characters from other films show up in them? Or did you let those cameos completely fly under the radar? The main character in Turning Red is going through that complicated preteen phase and has to learn some valuable life lessons while dealing with growing up. Aside from the fact that she turns into a giant red panda, the movie has a lot in common with Inside Out, which also dives into similar themes. Maybe that's why they decided to sneak in a Riley cameo as an Easter egg. In the scene where May runs through the school in a red panda form, she ends up knocking over a girl who looks a lot like the main character from Inside Out, if not identical. That secret appearance was awesome, but it's just the first of many we're going to see in this video. So jump on the hype, it's time for another Cinewave. Riley showing up in Turning Red was pretty epic, right? But believe it or not, that wasn't the only time she popped up in a movie outside the Inside Out saga. In fact, she seems to love making surprise appearances in other Disney films. In Finding Dory, for example, you can spot her in the crowd watching an aquarium. And no, she's not just some random lookalike. The movie's own directors confirmed that the girl really is Riley. Then, in Luca, there's a scene where an older woman is carrying a baby. Even though it looks like a regular baby, the design is exactly the same as Riley when she was a baby. So what's the deal? Did the animators just reuse the model to save time, or is this a sneaky intentional reference? That's a pretty fair question, and we might never get an official answer. What do you think is the truth? It's not just Riley who pops up in other movies. Some characters have had the honor of making cameo appearances as Easter eggs in both Inside Out films. In the first movie, there's a scene where young Riley is playing on the couch, and we see a cooking magazine with Colette on the cover. If you don't remember her, she's the chef from Ratatouille. If Colette is showing up in magazines, that must mean she became super famous after Ratatouille ended. It's awesome to know that characters keep succeeding even after the credits roll, right? In Inside Out 2, there's a moment where Sadness gets glasses from Joy so she can see better from far away. At first, it just looks like a slightly quirky pair of binoculars, but it's actually Lenny, a toy from the original Toy Story. That reference could mean two things. Either Riley had a toy just like Lenny and imagined him that way, or Toy Story exists as a movie in the Inside Out universe and the character stuck with her. Then again, there's a whole fan theory that Andy's mom from Toy Story is actually Riley all grown up. In Turning Red, there's another fun nod to a different Disney film. This time, it's on Carter's t-shirt. He's the emo kid May has a crush on. His shirt says Escapula, the name of a band that appears in Coco during a concert in the Land of the Dead. So yeah, Carter is totally into a band whose members are literally deceased. Sounds about right for an emo, doesn't it? Riley and May aren't the only young Pixar leads who apparently go to the same school, or at least went to it at some point. Because if you pay close attention in Toy Story 4, you'll spot that Bonnie goes to school with a familiar face from another Pixar film, Boo from Monsters, Inc. She shows up in the classroom and even at a toy stand. Boo looks a bit different from how she did in Monsters, Inc., but that's easy to explain. She's older now, so she's grown up a bit and looks more mature. Even Stitch from Lilo and Stitch couldn't escape getting turned into an Easter egg. In Big Hero 6, the alien shows up as a costume that Hero's cat is wearing in a photo. Stitch would probably be super offended if he found out he was turned into a costume, but come to think of it, that probably just means Hero was a big fan of the movie as a kid. If you also love spotting characters from one movie hidden in another, drop a comment below with #hidden. It didn't take long for Big Hero 6 to find out what it feels like to be referenced in another movie. That happened in Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is already packed with Easter eggs. This time, the one making an appearance is Cass, Hero's aunt, and the way they brought her into the film is just genius. She shows up in a sketchy dating ad. But don't get too excited, because this ad is probably fake and meant to give your computer a virus the second you click it. It's a great joke about how Cass is extremely attractive even though she's older. The joke is also about the internet itself. Tons of people fell for Cass when Big Hero 6 came out, and Pixar, being smart as ever, totally caught on to that. Another movie that features Easter eggs from a completely different production is Zootopia. And if you're wondering how that's even possible, since every character in that universe is an animal, it's because this cameo isn't exactly straightforward. This time it's Elsa, but she appears as a costume worn by a little elephant girl. And apparently, her sister is dressed as Anna. Sisters dressing up as sisters. Now that's next level coordination. In Coco, there's a detail that many people totally miss. While Miguel is running through the city streets, he passes by a doll of Woody. That's right next to a Buzz Lightyear doll. The Toy Story characters really are everywhere, huh? But that makes sense. They're toys, and toys can show up all over the place without necessarily being the exact same Woody and Buzz we know from the movies. There are tons of versions of the same toy after all. Need more proof that these characters can show up literally anywhere? In Seoul, when Joe visits the barbershop, there's a photo on the wall of the barber and his family. In the picture, you can clearly see a bright blue bunny. Not just any stuffed animal, but Bunny, the hilarious character from Toy Story 4. See what I mean? These characters from the Toy Story universe really do show up in every corner, and you might not even notice them. There are just so many toys that it's hard to remember all their faces. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the kingdom of Arendelle from Frozen isn't so far away from the kingdom of Corona, where the Tangled characters live? Lots of fans started to believe the two nations have a close relationship because Rapunzel shows up in Arendelle in the background of one scene in Frozen. And she's not alone. You can clearly see that she's accompanied by someone who has the exact same hairstyle as Flynn Rider, aka Eugene Fitzherbert, if we're being formal. Since Rapunzel has short hair and is walking next to Eugene, we can assume this takes place not long after the events of Tangled, right? Talking theories about your favorite animated movies is awesome, isn't it? If you want to learn even more about the cartoons you love, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss one of our videos. We already talked about the time Stitch showed up in Big Hero 6, but the movie starring the mischievous alien also includes a special cameo that very few people actually noticed. And this time, it's a much older character, Dumbo the elephant, who appears as a stuffed animal. Another character who makes a sneaky appearance in this movie is Mulan. The Chinese warrior shows up on a movie poster that slipped past a lot of viewers. In Up, there's a character you'd never expect to see outside of his own movie. He's a toy, tossed into the corner of a little girl's room. We're talking about none other than Lotso, the villain from Toy Story 3. Honestly, I'd be more shocked if we hadn't just talked about Bunny popping up in Seoul, or Lenny from the first Toy Story reappearing so many years later in Inside Out 2. In The Incredibles, one of the first villains to appear is Bon Voyage, a French thief who manages to escape Mr. Incredible. He doesn't show up again, at least not in the Incredibles franchise. Instead, this thief later appears in a totally unrelated Disney movie, Ratatouille, walking through the streets of Paris. Well, Bon Voyage is clearly French, so maybe he just decided to retire from crime and return to his home country. Or maybe he kept being a criminal, just now in Paris. Who knows? In the Toy Story series, there are so many toys that it would probably take a lifetime to count them all. But did you know that some of them reference other movies? In Toy Story 2, there are several bug-themed toys that seem to represent characters from A Bug's Life. Toy Story 2 was released just 1 year after that movie, so seeing characters from A Bug's Life show up here makes total sense. But Disney isn't the only one that loves sneaking their characters into different movies. Sure, they're the masters of it, but Illumination is also a fan of this kind of Easter egg. In The Secret Life of Pets, the movie all about what animals do when humans aren't around, one of the studio's most iconic characters shows up casually walking in the background. Gru, from Despicable Me. Hopefully none of the pets decide to go out for a walk while Gru's battling some supervillain and blowing up half the city in the process. In The Lorax, also from Illumination, there's another Despicable Me character that makes a quick cameo, but this time in a slightly different form. If you look at the main character's shoes, you'll see a little minion design printed on them. Could those be from Gru's official brand? In Flushed Away, there's a moment where Roddy, the main character, is trying to decide what to wear. Before settling on a suit, he picks up something unexpected, a Wolverine costume. At first, the superhero outfit might seem like just a random joke, but it hits different when you realize the actor voicing Roddy is Hugh Jackman, who's famous for playing Wolverine in the X-Men movies. The video's just about over, but if you're still up for more fun, go ahead and click on one of the 2 videos we left on your screen. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!